Good morning, everybody. My name is Shana, and I'd like to welcome you to this session of the Ottawa Public Library's online program, the Tech Cafe. The Tech Cafe is a series of presentations on computer and technology topics designed to increase your knowledge and stimulate your interest in technology. This presentation is called What is iCloud and will be presented by David Roston and Thomas LaRue from BuyMug, the Bytown Mac Users Group. David and Tom have been the organizers of BuyMug since 2006. They are experts in using Apple products and both have been technology consultants for 2 decades, primarily focused on Apple-based solutions. They will be talking about what the iCloud is and how best to use it. For more information about BuyMug, please visit buymug.ca. And before I turn the session over to David and Tom, I would like to remind you that this is a Zoom webinar and that you have all been muted to allow for best sound quality. You will not be able to unmute yourselves. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window at the bottom of your screen. Before posting a chat, please remember to click on the down arrow beside where it says all panelists and change the chat setting from all panelists to all panelists and attendees so that others can see your questions and can benefit from any answers provided. So I'd like to thank you very much for attending this online program presented by the Ottawa Public Library. And I will now turn the session over to David Roston and Tom LaRue. It's up to you guys.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is David, and my friend here is Tom.
Good morning, everyone.
We have been running the Bytown Mac Users Group for 16 years, I think it is now.
Something like that.
Yeah, I know, I lose track. And we have been helping people with Mac and eventually iPhone and iPad and iPod Touch and Apple Watch and all these good things. And I'm sure I've missed a few for many years. And people have a lot of questions about iCloud, mostly because it's something you can't lay your hands on. And it does so many different things that we decided to do this Tech Cafe. Yes, it's being recorded. After the session is done, it's going to be transcribed by professionals and then will be added to the YouTube channel at some point in the future. So the first part of all of this iCloud stuff is how do you get to iCloud? Like, what do you need to do to become part of iCloud? So when you get an Apple device, you need to set up an Apple ID. So that's an email address and a password that gives you access to all this stuff. And that is what connects you to iCloud. It also connects you to a bunch of other services that Apple has, like the iTunes music and movie and TV store and that kind of stuff. And it's that one identifier that you use for everything. And the big one today we're covering is iCloud. So where do we want to start, Tom?
It's a good question. So I think one of the first things we should probably look at is like just kind of go through all of the things that iCloud can do for you. It offers storage, synchronization, it manages contacts, calendars, notes, messages, bookmarks, all kinds of stuff. And that allows you to sync all of these things across all of your Apple devices. It also allows you to store and retain passwords and linking devices together across all of the platforms, iOS, Apple TV, etc. It also allows you to share files, photos, etc. Again, across all of your devices. And one of the other important things is one of the main differences between iCloud and a lot of the other sharing services is privacy. And we'll leap into talking about that near the end, I think. Mm-hmm. Do we want to go through?
I guess we should start on like where do you connect? So in your settings on your device. Now we're showing this on an iPhone, but you're going to see the same thing on an iPad. If you're on a Mac or on a PC, yes, you can install iCloud on your PC. there is going to be system preferences or control panels, and you're going to access exactly the same information. And you can also log into iCloud.com on the web and see the same, most of the same information. So here in settings, Tom, you can see Tom has logged in at the very top where his name is, and you'll see Apple ID and iCloud. So the first couple of things are his contact information, the security details, you know, things like two-factor authentication, which is run through iCloud. And this is a pretty big deal. This is all the security stuff. Apple is pushing very much to have everyone use two-factor authentication, which means that you have your device. Oops, let me set my phone to really don't bother me until we're done. Set your devices to help authenticate you. So my phone, my iPad, and my computer are all trusted devices, and they're all shared through. So you can see on Tom's the screen that Tom is sharing at the bottom, you'll see Whitestar 28 and Babylon 5 and the other devices. These are all the devices that Tom has connected to his Apple ID and his iCloud account. And so for the security stuff, it knows all of these devices. They're all trusted. They all go through the cloud, through iCloud, to be proved that they're his, that he owns them, that he's connected to them, and that all of these devices share basically the same information. So let's go back to the top. And payment and shipping. Well, you have an Apple ID, you need to spend money on things like maybe you're going to subscribe to iCloud to get more space. So in there, you're going to be paying for things. And then subscriptions. This is awesome, by the way. You can go in and say, these are the subscriptions I have. So I have an Apple TV subscription, but I had the free one because I bought a new device. And I just went in and tap on the Apple TV Plus, and you can turn it off. You can make changes to it. It's super, super simple in here. And I really, really like the fact that Apple has worked hard to make this one thing just nice and simple.
And this works across anything that you subscribe to through your Apple ID. So in here you can see I have a subscription to Overcast, which is a podcast player. And if I decide that I'm done with Overcast, I can just cancel my subscription. There's no salesperson who's going to spend as much time as possible to save me as a sale. It's just cancel, you're gone. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about this.
The only thing I think they should put in here is your iCloud subscription to make it easy to find. So yeah, that's just one of the many, many things that are all part of the whole iCloud. All right, so let's go back one. And so those were the basics for, you know, who you are, how you're connected, and so on. And then below that, we have iCloud itself. So once you go into iCloud, so Tom has a 200 gigabyte plan. So let's talk about the plans for a second. When you sign up for your Apple ID, which by the way, you don't need an Apple email address, you can use your Gmail, your Hotmail, your Rogers, it don't matter. Once you sign up, you get 5 gigabytes of space for free. But got to be honest, that's going to run out fairly quickly because we want you to use your iCloud to store very specific things, which we'll go further into as we go down. But here you can see that Tom has in yellow a section with photos. There's some backups in there. There's some other, which is probably like other documents and stuff, and family, because he has a family sharing plan. So him and his wife and maybe the dog are sharing space in iCloud. I have the same thing. My wife and kids and I all share the same family account. And it makes it super convenient, and it guarantees, in my case, that my wife and my kids' phones are all backed up all the time with no intervention required. And so when one of them breaks their phone or loses it, which has happened, we're not worried about it. Okay, but it does mean that if you're not on the free plan, you go to the 50 gigabyte a month, 50 gigabyte total plan, which is $1.29 in Canada a month, or you go for the 200 gig plan, which is what Tom is using, for $3.99 a month, and then you can go up to the 2 terabyte plan, which is $12.99 a month. And I should mention Apple has a new package deal coming, and I'm putting air quotes here, sometime this fall, called Apple One, where they're going to bundle iCloud and the TV and the music and there was some
Music,
other things.
arcade, like just about everything. They're going to be adding a fitness component. And as we discussed in one of our past BIMUG meetings, a bunch of us are going to be trying out the Apple Fitness Plus because that looks interesting.
Yeah.
And we have a question.
Oh, okay.
I signed up for the paid iCloud. To my surprise, all the photos from my phone were copied to my Mac, making a big mess. How do I prevent this? The reason I read this question now is because we're about to answer how that happened.
Yeah. Okay. And why you should be okay with that.
Yeah. Yes. Both Dave and I will heartedly agree that yes, it's okay and ideal for the photos on your phone to go to your computer because it means that they're in two places, which means if something tragic happens to your phone, you still have your photos, which is by far the largest pain point that Dave and I encounter when we do consulting. Is it always, no one cares if they lost a spreadsheet, but if they lost Timmy's photos or pictures of their dog for 6 years, then oh my goodness, it can be very, very traumatic. So right here, you can see we have photos and you'll see it says on. And in here you have iCloud photos, optimize iPhone storage, photo stream, and then shared albums. And we're just going to quickly go through this. So if you turn off iCloud photos, basically the photos on your phone will remain on your phone, which is useful, I guess, if you don't want to put your pictures in the cloud and not have backups of your photos. Dave,
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. Neither one of us think this is a good idea. For the small amount of money we're looking at, it is completely justifiable as far as we're concerned, just on the basis of keeping copies of your phones, of your pictures. The next option here is optimize iPhone storage or keep and download originals. Optimize is the option that I tend to say you should use unless you have one of the humongous iPhones. This means it will keep a low resolution copy of most photos. And when you click on a photo to look at it full screen, it will download the original off of Wi-Fi. Alternatively, the download and keep originals means it will try to keep full resolution copies of every photo in your phone. And if you have collections of the size that Dave and I have, which is in the range of 30 to 40,000 photos each, that's not very practical, especially with the size of images these days.
So the lady who posted asking about how she messed up her photos says that she's using her phone for ephemeral stuff and everything on the Mac was nicely sorted. So I want backup, but not sync. So first of all, I'm going to disagree with what you're doing because at some point you're going to learn the hard way that what you thought was ephemeral stuff on your phone turns out to be super important and you should have done it differently. But the answer for what you want is you use iCloud Photos on your Mac so that'll sync to the cloud. You can turn off iCloud Photo Library on your phone and use Upload to My Photo Stream on your phone and use shared albums. And that will put the photos you take on your phone into your photo library in a way and will do what you want. But again, it's not the right way to go. Just get used to having a single photo library visible from everywhere, and you'll discover that your life is much easier that way.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm actually hoping that the photo stream option goes away at some point. Shared albums are a really useful tool for sharing photos amongst either a family or friends or just a group of people. It's really useful also if you want to create an album and put that album to use, like using your Apple TV to show the photos. So you could actually just create a shared album, share it with your Apple TV, and then have photos from the last 6 months of your life, which today everywhere is just photos of everyone being home.
Hey, we go
Here's me on the
outside
couch.
on occasion, you know.
That's true. Here's me on my morning walk. Here's me on my other morning walk. But it allows you to, when you have a gathering of folks, you can see that. It's useful.
I also use the shared albums to share photos with my parents. We have a
Yes.
family album. So whenever the kids or my wife takes a great photo or I take one, I can throw it in there so everybody gets a copy. You got to sort of prompt people to do that, but hey. All right. So and we've spent already a couple minutes on photos, and I look at the time and I already realize we're 17 minutes in. And I start to panic because iCloud covers so much stuff. But you'll see as we scroll down, mail, contacts, calendars, reminders, notes. Why don't you have messages synced, Tom?
That's a good question. I must
Safari,
have turned that off
bookmarks,
during a demo.
news, stocks, HomeKit, health, wallet, all of this stuff, Siri settings, the keychain, which keychain is an important one. Keychain will save your passwords and other information that you give it, and will synchronize it between all your devices. So this is awesome because it means that you can have your device create a real password. You don't have to invent one on your own, and we could spend a whole hour and a half on that. And we have. And then when it creates the password and offers to save it for you on your phone, when you go to log into a new service, say yes. And then when you go sit down in front of your other device, it knows that password. Same thing with credit card information. So when you're making a payment for something, you can just pull it out of iCloud Keychain and use it. It means you don't physically have to pull your credit card out of your pocket. It means that, yeah, it's just use it. It makes your life a lot easier. And it is encrypted. It's stored safely. Yeah, it works really well. All right, and then we go back up one and we go to backups. Another very critical thing. So iCloud backup is on for Tom's phone, and that's all you need to do. Just turn it on. And actually, you don't even need to turn it on. I think it's turned on for you by default now.
I believe it is, but it's always worth checking.
Yeah, and it backs up over Wi-Fi. So when you plug in your phone to charge overnight, for example, at home, where everybody is, it's on your Wi-Fi, it's powered, it's locked, it just backs up automatically. Don't need to think about it. You'll notice that there's no other options here. It's very deliberate. For those of you who are not, Apple users and are not familiar with this, Apple loves to give you one choice. Either use it or don't. And they're not really interested in your opinion. They know the best way to do this, and whether you agree or not is totally irrelevant. So we say, yep, make backups, and that's it. It just works. And it's awesome. Does iCloud backup everything or only the items chosen? So you don't get a choice. It backs up your entire phone. Now, I say it backs up your entire phone, but really what it's doing is it's backing up everything that is your information. It doesn't make a copy of your apps, for example, because it can download those from the App Store. So Apple does do some smart things to sort of limit how much space you're taking, but just think of it as it backs up your entire phone. If you're backing up your iPad, it'll do that as well. Just do it. But yes, if you are turning things on and off in iCloud, which you shouldn't, you should have everything on. If you have something turned off, then come and talk to us. We do, by the way, have an email list for BuyMug. If you send an email to, and I'll stick it in the chat here, info@buymug.ca. We have two email lists, one to announce our meetings and another one where we discuss all this stuff. So if you have questions after this Tech Cafe, feel free to get in touch and we'll add you to the mailing list and you can ask a million questions and then we can go into detail back and forth. Do you use iCloud Drive, Tom? I don't really find myself using it much.
I use it a bit. I
Okay.
use it to store stuff that I want to be able to make sure that it's on all of the devices that I need. So sometimes it'll be copying a PDF that I'm reading or something like that. But yeah, by and large, the syncing, the stuff, managing file stuff, I don't really do a lot of that. So
Okay. I found I let all the apps use iCloud Drive because it's super convenient to be able to see
and yeah,
things.
that's
Yeah. So, okay. What else we have? Books. Yeah. All my electronic books are in Apple
mhm.
Books, Pages documents, Numbers documents, kind of like Excel, Keynote, like PowerPoint, GarageBand. So all of these apps, basically, they're all on, and that basically tells every single one of them that they're allowed to store their documents in the cloud. And what's really cool is that the documents, like the entire contents, are stored encrypted. They're stored, in this case, only Tom can get access to them. Um, and we could argue about security and Apple and security and not Apple for hours. We will not do that today. But just suffice it to say that I am very comfortable with the level of security that Apple is giving me with these things. Um, and I happily tell all my apps to store their stuff in the cloud because it means that I can use my phone and my iPad and my computer and not have to think about managing documents. And it makes it super easy. This is exactly the same reason we do the iCloud photo library. I don't want to micromanage all of these things. But you want to micromanage stuff, don't you, Tom?
Sometimes, but generally, I've kind of come around to the thinking of just let it be handled, because there's only so many hours in a day to micromanage things, and I have other things to micromanage.
So how much stuff have we gone through? We gone through all the documents, the backups, the photos, the app data. So if we go back up for a second, we talk about contacts, calendar. We should mention how this
Sure.
works. So the mail has always confused me because if you turn on mail, it wants to give you an iCloud account, a free iCloud email account, but it also synchronizes mail accounts, doesn't it?
Yes.
I've never been
So
quite
if
sure.
you're like me, I have I think 8 or 9 different accounts across different servers. This will help synchronize all of that stuff, so you don't have to constantly be fidgeting, which is nice. Contacts is similar. Both Dave and I store all of our contacts in the cloud, in iCloud. And what's kind of nifty is how generally quick it is. So I'm going to pop out and let's cross our fingers for a demo here.
We call it demoitis. Something just went wrong.
So
PUM, nothing for PUM.
Nothing for PUM. So let's launch contacts on my Mac and
And
let's.
and what I really like about calendar and notes and bookmarks and all of these things that synchronize between devices. So what Tom wants to show us is how quick the synchronizing is. Now, synchronizing obviously depends on internet access. So you'll see in the top left-hand corner of the Tom's shared screen, he's on his cell phone, so he's on Wi-Fi and on the cell network. So it'll use whatever it needs to be able to share the information. That's a whole nother tech cafe we could do on internet. And usually what happens is when you set up a contact on your computer or your iPad, and within a minute or so, it synchronized to all your other devices. There we go. So that's the great pumpkin. So Tom created this on his computer, and as soon as he creates it, the computer says, hey, this is new, shoves it up to iCloud. And so one of the things that's important to realize here is that the cloud is what we call the source of truth. So if we were to go away from Tom's phone for a minute and go to iCloud.com, the website, and log into it, we could actually see our contacts, our calendar, all that stuff on the web. And that's where we go to make sure if we're confused, like, why am I seeing some things on one device and not on the other? Go see what's actually in the cloud. Troubleshooting is a whole nother seminar, but what's cool is that it ships it up to the cloud and then his phone says, anything new? And it goes, yeah, here, the Great Pumpkin, and pull it down. And so what I love about this is I can update a contact on my phone, and within a minute, it's on my computer. Photos is the same, calendar is the same, bookmarks is the same, all of that stuff is, it's, you know, some days it feels kind of like magic. One of the really cool ones is Handoff, which uses that same technology. So if Tom starts writing an email on his computer, he can actually continue the email on his iOS device. Or if he opens up a web page on his phone, his computer actually gets a little icon pops up at the end of his dock saying, hey, you've just opened a web page on your iOS device. Would you like to open it here? So there's a lot of really cool things happening in the background. Might exist, might not. Is there a special one again this year? Or is it the same one we've been watching over and over?
It's the same one we've been watching our entire lives.
Okay. So I know what's going to happen. There's no surprises here.
But again, that was me updating the contact on my Mac, and it updating over on the phone after I hit enter.
Yeah, it's so I really like iCloud specifically for this reason, in that stuff goes back and forth. It's super easy. I don't need to manage synchronizing calendars, contacts, photos, documents. Like, oh, that's all the dark ages as far as I'm concerned. This is why, again, we go back to the photos. Don't micromanage them. Just let it handle it for you.
Absolutely. And, you know, go ahead.
I was just looking at our notes, trying to figure out all the things that we haven't covered yet.
Well, one of the things that I was going to say was about notes specifically is, I mean, for example, Dave and I have a shared note. So within iOS and Apple macOS, there is a service called Notes, and it allows you to create shared notes, and through iCloud, let you share that note across the cloud with someone else. So Dave and I are working off of the same shared note. So when he types into it, I see his changes, and when I type into it, he sees my changes, which makes working collaboratively very easy. And it's one of those really handy features. And I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to Notes, and I'm going to pull up his note and scroll to the bottom, and Dave will add something to it.
Oh, here we go. Oops, got to spell that correctly.
So Wendy has a question. When I
go to print off a picture off my phone, I need the original. How do I get the original on my phone just for this purpose? You don't. If you're using iCloud Photo Library and you open up the picture on your phone, it will download the original. If your phone doesn't have internet access, it can't download the original. So at that point, you should be printing your pictures off of, let's say, print them to Costco from home so that you have Wi-Fi at home, for example. And there are plugins for Apple Photos to print images. There's half a dozen or so in Canada.
Thereabouts, yeah.
And anyhow, there's a bunch of them so that you can print from your computer as well. So yeah, you can see, please watch the Great Pumpkin special. That's an important thing that you should be doing, but let me remove that from the notes because it's not really relevant to iCloud session, and it's gone. Okay, so yeah, this is really great for us because we can collaborate, and there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with notes, which is also really cool. All right, so back to our settings. So calendars, reminders, notes, messages. Yeah, there's all of this stuff is all shared through the cloud.
One of the important ones is in Safari, and I mean, a lot of other places do that. A lot of other services do the same thing. They share your bookmarks across all your devices, but it also, stores your preferences for like stuff across the top and things like that. Now, one of the things that we haven't really touched on is Apple's goal is not to learn everything about you so they can sell you stuff or show ads based on what you have done. Your stuff is your stuff. That's That's it. They don't sell that information. They don't trade that information. And that's one of the things that really keeps me solidly using their stuff, because I know that they're not trying to market stuff to me. I mean, most people with Amazon who have, you may have noticed that when you order something and you get an email from Amazon saying that your order has shipped, they no longer say what your order was. And that's because Gmail was reading it and then showing you ads based on what you had just purchased off Amazon, which is priceless.
Yes. So how does Apple make all their money then if they're not selling you, they're not doing ads?
They sell us hardware and sell us services.
Yep. And
That's
they
how
make
they
a
do
lot
it.
of money doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, I would rather pay to have my stuff kept private than be shown advertising for free. Access my Rogers. So we have another question.
Yep.
I access my Rogers mail using the Yahoo app. I know it syncs my phone, iPad, and Mac. However, when I look at iCloud, I don't see it as an option to turn on or
Yeah. So what's
turn on
happening
or off the
here?
sync.
So because your account is through Rogers Yahoo, Rogers and Yahoo have a deal. It has nothing to do with iCloud. So you've set it up as an independent email account on your devices. It's nothing to do with iCloud, so you don't manage it from iCloud at all. You would go, in this case, to settings, passwords and accounts, and then you can go in there and turn it on and off. You advise against micromanaging files, etc. on your phone. What about organizing and purging files in iCloud itself? Well, you know, honestly, iCloud storage is pretty cheap. And I do go through all my files a couple times a year probably, and just look for stuff that I can throw away. Yeah, managed storage is great. I do this on my phone. I look for things that are taking up a lot of space because I want to get rid of them. Now, this is showing your iCloud storage. It's not showing your device storage. So
That's right.
Tom
We can go look at device storage separately.
Yeah, so Tom has 50 gigabytes worth of photos. Who cares? 7 gig worth of messages. Okay, whatever. But he's using, 168 gig of 200. So realistically, when we look at the top 3 offenders here are photos, messages, and backups. Actually, that's not true. The family storage is the big one. So realistically, Tom would go and have a little chat with his wife and say, "Dear, please stop taking 45-minute videos of the dog every morning. It's filling up iCloud." But he's not going to do that. He's just going to pay the $3.99 a month for 2 terabytes of storage and move on. If you go and look at the storage on your actual device, so that's if you go to settings, general.
It's under general, yeah.
And then iPhone storage. There we go. So this is the specific device, okay? So he's using, what is that, a quarter-ish? So if he scrolls down a little bit, you're going to see that he's using, it'll eventually figure it all out, but messages, music, and photos are probably the big offenders, but he's only used a quarter of the device. So at this point, it's not even worth managing at all.
That's right.
If anything, I would say, yes, do go into, your iCloud. There's an app called Files on the phone and the iPad. On the Mac, there's a space for iCloud documents. And yeah, you can go in there and just go through and clean up because we tend to generate a lot of stuff. But I find that unless I'm running low on space, I don't really bother. 10 gig worth of pocket, that's pretty impressive, Tom.
It should be almost empty though, because there's like 4 articles left to read. So it may not have caught up with itself.
Okay. But here you can see that the application takes up a tiny bit of space. Documents are huge. He can offload the application itself, which will, so when you offload the app, it deletes everything, but it keeps the documents and data in iCloud, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, and then you can delete the app, which deletes everything, including your data. And what's nice about this is that if you go further up here, there is a offload unused apps. So this is a service where the applications will get removed. Your documents and data, since they're stored in iCloud, will get removed from your device. And if you then decide to go back and start using this application again, so let's use Pocket as an example. If Tom stopped using it and enabled offload unused apps, the phone could sort of clean up after itself and say, well, you haven't looked at Pocket in 4 months. I'll remove everything from the phone, keep it in iCloud, and make 10 gig on the phone. I don't worry about it too much, again, because I just sort of keep an eye on my phone to make sure it's not completely full. And because I'm using iCloud Photo Library and everything else syncing to the cloud, I'm really not really concerned. But micromanaging in particular, I find that, you know, and Tom, you jump in here and tell me if your clients are the same. I find that, you know, I have two kinds of clients. One who never manages any of the stuff until it's too late, which is kind of like me. We're running low on space, let's go clean up. And then I have other kinds of clients who are constantly like cleaning emails, deleting files, organizing, and so on. And I always feel bad for those people because you don't need to do that. What you should be doing is exactly the opposite. You should be creating, generating new stuff, sharing with people, working on new and fun things, and not worrying so much about digital clutter. Because you know what, when it comes down to it, yeah, you're running low on space. Okay, let's go look at how many movies I have. Oh, I got 400 movies, and there's, you know, 22 of them that I can delete because they're not important. There you go. I got a bunch of free space again. And then we go back to
Yeah,
having, you know, it's just differences. It's two differences of perspective. Hopefully that answers your question without giving you even more new things to worry about.
the notion of micromanaging is interesting because a lot of the time I find that when people are busy, you clearing up emails or, you know, looking for files to delete, they're just using that as a tool for procrastination to avoid doing something else. And both Dave and I can talk. I was going to say, both Dave and I can talk a lot about useful things we do that are basically procrastinating. The honest reality is, I mean, I generate a humongous amount of files some days.
And the reason he does that is Tom is a video editor as a profession.
So I can generate a, you know, 800 gigabyte file in one project. That requires some management, but not the kind of management that we're talking about here, where I'm going to spend a lot of time looking to delete small bits of data that aren't. Spending an hour to delete a gigabyte of data isn't worth your time. So it's a...
Yeah, the only time I ever go through and really clean up, there's really only two cases. One is, you know, you've run up against a hard limit where you've completely run out of space. The other one is before you go shop for a new device. So in Tom's case here, you can see he's used 65 gig out of 256. So if Tom decided to go buy a new phone tomorrow, he could actually buy a 128 gig phone. Now, I know he won't because he uses it to shoot video and needs the storage space, but
exactly,
he could buy a smaller phone. So for a lot of people, you know, they come to me and they say, well, I have a 16 gig iPhone that's 5 years old and I'm always running out of space. And I'm like, okay, did you turn on iCloud Photo Library? Did you offload unused apps? Did you do this? Did you do that? Okay, you've done all the right things. You're still out of space. Let's go look and see what we can do if you can't buy a new phone right now. You know, that's okay. We make some room. The other one is if you're replacing a Mac or a PC, for example, you want to know that the amount of storage you're using on your device, you're going to need that much and more on your new one. And if you throw out 200 gigs worth of stuff, you're like, hey, I saved money by buying a smaller drive on my new machine because I cleaned up. You also get the sort of feel good because, you know, you threw out a bunch of stuff you didn't need anymore. And it makes a difference when you're restoring from backup, for example. If you delete, you know, 100 gig and then you do a backup and then you restore to a new device, it's going to go faster. So that's a good time. Yeah, before you move, clean up. Just like when you're moving houses, throw stuff out before you move, not after. Right?
Yes.
So one of the things we haven't talked about, and we've only got 20 minutes left, so we should barely cover it, is security. So let's go and find my device and talk about device locking. Find my iPhone. So go back up and show people how you got here because, right? Okay, so if you go into, you can do your search and then you go into settings and then you go into iCloud. Actually, you don't go into iCloud anymore. You go into Find My. And so Find My is enabled. What does it do? It enables your iPhone and other supported accessories to be shown on a map. It means that when you drop your phone and it slides into the couch and disappears, and you've gotten over your panic attack and realized that you can go to your computer and say, where is my phone? Make it ping. This is what's doing it. So this device, it has Share My Location enabled. It knows where it is. In Tom's case, Tracy can also see where that phone is, and she can go into her Find My and say, hey, Tom, your phone is on the map here at home. So I'm going to hit the ping button, and then Tom's going to hear a little noise inside the couch. The dog's going to lose his mind, and he's going to find his phone. Now, Find My Device does a couple of other important things. It locks your device to your Apple ID, which means that if somebody steals your device and somehow you've left it unlocked so that they can access your information, they can erase it. But as soon as it reboots, it's still locked to, in this case, Tom. So you have a really nice shiny glass brick. It is completely useless without Tom doing the second unlock, which is unlocking his Apple ID. So this is important because when you buy a device from someone, not from Apple, because they sell you always brand new, never used unlocked devices. When you buy it from a friend or somebody else, there's two kinds of things that have to be done to it. It must have Find My Device disabled, so it's not locked to anyone, and it must have if you go into general all the way down to reset, there's a spot where you can completely erase the device. So general all the way to the end, reset, and erase all content and settings, which Tom is going to do. No, just kidding.
No.
So you need to do those two things to have a completely empty device. So I have on my shelf, for example, an older iPad that we're no longer using, and I have gone in and turned off the Find My, and then I went in and erased the entire device. So now I have a completely blank device that I can give away or sell, and it will be basically brand new, other than the fact that it's a couple of years old and won't run the latest and greatest thing. This is really, really awesome because it means you can find lost devices. You can also lock a device remotely. If your child loses their phone, but the phone has internet access, you can go into Find My. If you're a family member, you can lock it, or the child can log into to their iCloud and lock it. And then they can put a message on it. If device is found, call this other number. They can remotely erase it. So one of my clients called me once. She was traveling in the US years ago, and she called me from Chicago and she said, I dropped my phone in the bathroom in the San Francisco airport. And I said, that sucks. What happened? She said, no, I can still see the phone. I go to the Find My and I can see it. It's still in the airport. And she's like, what do I do? And I said, well, you click the button that says erase device. And at that point, it is completely empty. It's no longer attached to you, and there's none of your information on it. And so somebody's asking, where's the setting to lock the phone? So it's not actually in the Find My. There's a separate app, which is, do you have it installed, Tom, the Find My thing?
I think so.
Yep, there it is, Find My. So you open that and yep. Okay, so there you go. You can see Tom's devices. And so he can find his phone, for example. So just tap on your iPhone there. It even shows your AirPods. So if you tap on your iPhone, you can play a sound, you can get directions to where it is. And then if you scroll down, you can also send a notification. you can mark it as lost, and you can completely erase the device. So those are all the different things you can do. I've used the play sound one, for example. Just like, I know it's around here somewhere. I don't know where, it fell in my pocket or somewhere in the house.
I used the play sound feature on my AirPods. I was sitting in the back. I'd taken them out when I got home.
Yeah.
I put them in a pocket or something and sat down outside. And then I came inside and tried to put them back on. And I'm like, where are they? Went play sound, and eventually you wander around listening for them to be chirping. And then you pick them up, and then, oh, life can return to normal.
Oh, nice. I have to try that. I'm going to lose my AirPods this afternoon. So yeah, this is a super feature, and this is all managed through your iCloud. Okay, it's not obvious that it's through iCloud, but it's all managed through that. Heavily encrypted, heavily private. I can't get access to this stuff of Tom's. The only way that I could see any of this is if Tom shared his location with me, but even then I can't do anything about it. If Tom was visiting me, for example, and lost his phone, and if Tom trusted my devices, he could sit down in front of my computer, log into iCloud, log in, and then go to Find My, and then he could find his device lost somewhere in my house. That's a matter of a trust problem at that point. That's why you should use your own devices to look for your own devices. Yeah, we could go on and on about that.
Exactly. We have two questions.
Oh,
the first one is where is the setting to lock the phone?
So locking the phone to your device, if you go into your Apple ID, you go to Find My and you enable it. It's actually enabled automatically when you turn on your device. So there's Find My, and it is on. If you want to erase the device, then that's what Tom was showing us in the application called Find My. When you go in there, there was one option to erase device. So mark as
right
lost
down here at the bottom,
and erase device. Yeah, and we don't like to mess with this because we don't like to mess with it. But if you hit activate when you mark it as lost, it will lock the device and it'll start pinging. And yeah, you don't want to play with it, but the option is there. Okay? Notify when found. Yeah, not during a demo. Definitely not. Okay. But there's a bunch of stuff and directions. I mean, if Tom left his phone at my house and then he went home and didn't notice, he could where is it? Or if somebody put it in their pocket and wandered off with it, he could get directions to where his phone currently is. And then he could drive over and say, excuse me, bling, 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 just hand it over. Does Apple sell anything that can help you find lost keys, car keys, for example? They do not. There is a company called Tile, or the product is called Tile, and that does use Bluetooth, so it's a limited range, and you can attach a little plastic Bluetooth thing to your keys. Yeah. Do you know where the search mechanism is now on an iPad? If you just pull down anywhere, any screen pretty much, when you're on the dashboard, for example, if you just pull down, you get a search. And then you can search for whatever you want. And then if you're inside of settings, you can do the same search. If you're in mail, you can do the same search. Oh, yeah, you have to be at the top level of settings.
Yeah, I realized that right there.
I don't get search anymore. I have it on my phone, but not on the iPad. The search is still there. You just need to let me do it on my iPad here. Yeah, the search is still there. I still see it. I just pull down, it shows up at the top of my screen. So you'll have to play with it a little to see what you're doing funny.
Yeah, typically when you come into settings, if you just pull up, it's there on your home screen. If you just click somewhere and pull down, it should appear.
Yeah. So we've done Find My Device and Device Lock. So the other one that people ask a lot is, or they tell me, I'm not using the cloud. I don't want anybody else to have access to my stuff. Now, what we've found is that, so Tom and I have done research on this. There is, Apple has a apple.com/privacy where they talk about how the cloud works, how things are end-to-end encrypted, and what they do to make your information private. And they really do take your privacy seriously. And there you go. There's the privacy page. Privacy is a fundamental human right. So if we talk about other companies, Facebook, great example, Google, Samsung, if you buy a certain model of Samsung television, it's just listening to you all the time. If you buy an Amazon Echo or a Google Dot or one of these devices, they're listening to you all the time. And they're storing the information in the cloud. And Apple doesn't do that. Apple is not perfect. Absolutely not, but they are way ahead of the pack when it comes to privacy. So their products are privacy oriented first. Yes, there are ways where with the right court things, your data can be accessed. So it's not 100% private. But if you're using any other product out there, it's much, much worse. Just look up Cambridge Analytica as a good example. That should keep you busy all day. So we don't go into big, long-winded discussions about why, this type of privacy is better than that type of privacy. If you're paranoid and you feel that none of your information should be on the internet or in the cloud or in email or anything, we don't have a tech cafe on homesteading in the Ozarks or in the Rocky Mountains or whatever, because we're about using the technology for our benefit. We all understand that there's limitations to how much privacy there can be. I work with a company that deals with HIPAA in the US, which is medical information privacy. In Canada, it's called PIPEDA, and there's different rules and regulations about privacy, and there's different levels. And that's really what you need to know, is that Apple is at a higher level than most companies, than many companies, and they take it seriously. I trust it for my information, but even then, I'm using, for example, 1Password to store my passwords and certain confidential information, because I found that I needed to have that a little more secure. I don't use
Likewise.
Facebook, right? I don't use Facebook because I find that their practice of sharing information with everybody about you, I don't like it, so I don't use it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go off and install, Signal or something to communicate with my friends. I do use WhatsApp because I really do want to talk to family, and I realize it's owned by Facebook, and I'm willing to live with that. I should mention iMessage, which is Apple's messaging system, which goes through the internet, is end-to-end encrypted. Nobody else has access to that. We can talk different levels of paranoia some point in the future, but basically I find that I'm happy with the level of privacy and security that I'm getting from iCloud.
Agreed.
It's not perfect.
Nothing is, and that's something to understand and accept. We have one more question.
Sure.
Actually, we have two more. My iPhone contacts and calendar does not show up on my iCloud on desktop.
So I would go
probably.
So I go to your iPhone, and this is very common where I see people have two Apple IDs. They're logged in with one Apple ID on their phone and a different one on the computer. Make sure you're always using the same Apple ID. But the second thing you can do is, if you are using the same Apple ID, go into your phone, go into iCloud, turn off contacts, turn off calendar. You're not deleting anything. You're just kind of resetting it. Turn it back on again. Go to your computer, turn off contacts and calendar in iCloud, turn it back on again, and then give it 10 minutes and then check on it again. And it should it should normally be fine. And if you,
That should clear it up. Yeah.
it should clear it up. And if you really want to be sure, go to iCloud.com, log in with your Apple ID, the same one you're using everywhere, check your contacts and calendars, and make sure that stuff that you're expecting to see there is there. I've seen happen, you know, cellular data is turned off and your device is not on Wi-Fi. You know, the wrong Apple ID, you know, oh, I was syncing calendar and contacts through my Gmail on one device and iCloud on the other, and it was confused. So yeah, check
and
those
usually,
things.
that's the solution, is sit down with both devices and compare settings, because it's
Yes.
almost always one checkbox not checked. So next question is, how important is a good device password to protect information on your device? The answer is very.
Yes, having a passcode to access your device is important. Everybody should have a passcode. The length of the passcode is not going to affect the security that's related to iCloud, for example. It's just going to affect the security of the device. So if you do 1, 2, 3, 4 as your code on your phone, well, you deserve what happens when somebody steals your phone and guesses 1, 2, 3, 4. You really need to have a proper code.
The passcode on my phone is 3 words and then some extra stuff at the end, and that's very, very secure. There's no easy way to guess it or to brute force it, because every time, and you'll notice this if you ever accidentally enter your passcode wrong, is there's that slight pause between each attempt, and that's because the algorithm that is used to unlock your phone is computationally complex on purpose, so that it makes brute force guessing impractical. So if you have a, go ahead.
And I was going to say, on a newer device, you have Touch ID and Face ID, so you can have a fairly complex passcode for your device, which you need to make note of. But then you can use your fingerprint or hold up the phone to your face to unlock it. And you know, just like you shouldn't whip out your credit card and start reading the numbers out loud to yourself as you type them into Amazon when you're shopping in the coffee shop, you know, using your fingerprint or Face ID to unlock your device is, you know, I think it is a bit weird. Like, I find a fingerprint is not really a password; it's just identifying you. But at the same time, it removes a bunch of possible security. You know, somebody looking over your shoulder while you punch in your code. But yes, having a code is important. You know, let's start there. Have a code. A lot of people still don't use codes on their devices, and that is a risk. If that device walks away, then anybody who picked it up will have access to all your information on your device. And
realistically, I think I have to type in my passcode maybe once every few days.
Yeah, usually when you reboot,
having a, right? Yeah, and that's the thing, is you can't turn off iCloud. There's a whole bunch of things you can't do without that passcode, and that's done on purpose because, for example, my wife has her thumbprint on my phone so that she can quickly get into my phone in case she needs to, and that's just a safety thing. So.
Yeah,
but she doesn't.
Your passcode to your device is not the login to iCloud, right? So
exactly.
even if I guessed Tom's passcode on his phone, I could get access to his email and his documents and stuff. But you know, that's really, I can't really get much further. The code on a device was 4 characters, 4 digits actually. It's now defaulting to 6 or 8, I believe, and there is an advanced option where you can actually set it as long as you want. And I don't recommend everybody have a super long, complicated passcode. That's not the point here.
No, I carry client information in my phone, so yeah. I have to take the extra precaution.
I have client information on my phone, but it is inside of my password manager. So I don't have documents about my clients on my phone, right? So I don't worry about it so much. But yeah, use a decent passcode. All right, I figured out the search. You have to swipe down from the middle on a blank space. Yes, exactly. Yes, you're not swiping from the outside of the screen inwards. You're swiping from the middle of the screen downwards. All right, it is 11 o'clock. We have done it again, Tom.
We have
Um,
managed to fill all kinds of time.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for participating. That was awesome. We had a lot of really
Mhm.
good questions. We totally expect you guys still have a bunch of questions left over. So please, as I posted earlier, go to buymug.ca. I'll put it in the chat here, buymug.ca. Join our mailing list. Come and join our meetings. When's our next meeting?
Our next
Sunday?
meeting is this coming week, not this weekend, but next, it might be this
No,
weekend.
it's this weekend. Yeah,
Yeah, it is this
November
weekend.
1st. What are we doing?
Yep.
We don't know.
We have
But
a list.
we have an
There is
email
actually,
list. So yeah, we have a
so
shared note in the
on a
cloud.
funny note, we actually have a shared note amongst all of the main people in BuyMug so that we can add to what we're going to be talking about. So we'll be figuring that out this week and sending out the email probably Thursday or Friday.
So if you're interested, meetings are free. We do them on Zoom until the day we can get back in person. So yeah, send us an email, join the list, join our talk list. We're happy to answer any and all questions. Shayna, over to you.
Okay,
You can tell them about our
thanks.
next.
Okay, so I'd like to thank David and Tom very much for this terrific presentation. And I'm sure it's going to help all of us make better use of the iCloud. And I'm going to let you know that they will be back again next week to talk about the many ways you can use your Apple devices for communication. So please go to our website at www.biblioottawalibrary.ca to register for this and other Tech Cafe sessions. So thank you again for attending today's presentation, and we hope to see you soon again at the Tech Cafe. Goodbye for now.